Sure. Well, I mean, you talk a lot about documenting the journey, and I was trying to figure out about like chicken or the egg here. You talk about starting and just doing and going for it, but then you talk about how you didn't start talking until you actually built a business and built brand and built awareness. So you were quiet for quite some time. So Gary, chicken or the egg? Which one do we do here with trying to build a personal brand?
I'm glad you asked that because there's a very strong clarification here that you'll give to the whole audience if they're confused, and I can see how they'd be confused. I would have started documenting the wine library journey, but I wouldn't have at 22 come out and said I was a business expert because I hadn't successfully built a huge business. So I would have documented being, hey guys, this is 22-year-old GaryVee. I think that I'm gonna be really successful because for the last 8 years, I've been selling baseball cards. I've been in my dad's business. I think I've got this. The internet's gonna be big. You'll see it. So I would have been documenting my truth. When I say I didn't come out and talk until I did, as an authority worthwhile of writing business books that I thought people should have followed. And so that's the clarification. I would have documented the early days of my entrepreneurship. What happened instead was I felt comfortable coming out as an authority because I had serious business success at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that.
So I think you could choose one or the other. I would recommend the documenting because if you're willing to do it, the upside is extreme. It gives you another place where you might be able to be successful in. Or, for example, I think Wine Library would have done a lot more revenue if there was also tens of thousands of people following my journey of building this store. They would have come and visited because they would have thought the 25-year-old punk kid was interesting and intriguing. So it would have had greater reach along the way.
I want to also say, Blake, I think you learn a lot by documenting. So just by the process of documenting, your mind is working differently than if you're just on to the next project.
So documenting. So you started documenting behind the wall, I know it's ideated across the ways. What were the biggest eye openers when you started doing the vlog in your world?
That I sucked at it. That I knew I was good live on stage when I could see the whites of people's eyes and I could adjust. But behind the camera, when someone said action or now you're on, I would tense up and I would become less authentic. Yeah. So for me, it was just massaging through the fact that I'm not that strong yet at being on camera.
Did winning in artistry and getting better at that give you a quiet confidence in the back of your head because you solved that thing?
No, it was a hook. Art was more therapy. I use art in the presentations because people think it's cool.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a sanctuary back in my studio just to grow, but it's also documenting. That's why I write, is to document.
Blake, I think the key is always reverse engineering yourself. I think the fact that we're capable with today's technologies to document is really cool. To be very frank with you, one thing that I also want to throw out is I think people are underestimating the documentation of their lives and the impact on their families. I would tell you, no question, the coolest thing from documenting all this and what I'm doing is the amount of content my great-great-grandkids are gonna have in watching me and seeing the similarities in their DNA and me. It's just cool. I don't have a lot of family photos. I know nothing about my when I tell you I know nothing about my two grandfathers, I know nothing. And so I think there's some the documenting is a lot cooler than you think just from that part, let alone the business impact it has in the short term.
We also we opened the show kind of talking about Ibiza and a couple $100,000 and private jets, and that's one thing for Instagram and social media, but to actually see people who aren't winning yet, to watch the process, the challenge, that documenting I think is as interesting, if not more interesting, than the actual bling bling.
So Blake, I think you could document the journey now and that'll be cool and it has its upside, or if it's more interesting for you, you put your head down for a decade, and if you want to come out as an expert, you come out after you've already won, because it's a lot more fun to talk shit once you've accomplished something.
Exactly, I'm trying to do both, so I appreciate that. I know you also said, instead of putting CEO in your profile, putting aspiring artist or something like that. So how do you build credibility if you're aspiring while still trying to
You don't deserve credibility if you haven't accomplished.
Okay.
You might become fascinating to somebody with your bravado of predicting your accomplishments, but people are trying to get credibility before they've earned it, and they think some way they can create a facade for it, and that's my fucking problem with it, because it's undermining you. You may trick the 10% losers, but you've lost with the 10% winners.
I'm with you. Just want to make sure I got confirmation on it.
No worries, brother. All right, let's move it along because I know we're time limit constraints. I don't want to get yelled at for interrupting.
If you're
fuckers.
if you're an aspiring artist, don't race to commoditize. Keep working the brand, building the brand. You might lose authenticity if you try and commoditize too early. So, aspiring artists, stay hungry, build the brand, but don't be careful about when you turn and try and turn it into a business, because you could lose some of your authenticity.
100%.